The Emperor's Children have 19 datasheets. That is the second smallest range in the game, behind only the Death Watch. 19. And when a range is that small, everybody's army starts to look like everybody else's army, which is exactly what the data shows. There is one Emperor's Children list, and 200 people are playing small variations of it. What makes this week worth a dossier is that a week ago, Games Workshop changed what their most popular detachment scores on. Not its rules, what it scores on. So today is 201 lists, 1,100 games, every result on record since the edition opened, and one change that landed a week ago that nobody has had time to solve yet. 51.8% across 201 lists and 1,144 games. 4 event wins, and 15 podium finishes. That is a good number, and it is a boring number, and I mean that as a compliment. Week by week, they have finished as high as 2nd and as low as 12th, and that 12th was the opening weekend when the whole board was 40 games deep and meant very little. Since then, they have not left the upper middle of the table. They also have not won it. 4 event wins in 6 weekends, against the Orcs, who have 14. So the shape here is an army that is reliably fine, rather than an army that spikes. If you want a faction that turns up and goes 3-2 or 4-1 most weekends, this is one of them. One number worth putting next to that: 201 lists out of 4,249 in the window, so a shade under 5% of the field. They are properly played. This is not a small sample being read too hard. 4 builds carry basically the whole faction. Coterie of the Conceited is the most played by a distance, 76 lists, and it sits at 52.6. Carnival of Excess paired with Frenzied Host is 35 lists and 56.7, so 4 points better on half the lists. Court of the Phoenician with Frenzied Host is 26 lists at 47.5, and Peerless Bladesmen with Spectacle of Slaughter is also 26 lists at 41.5. That is a 15-point spread between the best and the worst of them, and the crowd is not on the best one. Coterie is the popular pick, and it is the middle of that range. I ask myself why, and I do not have a data answer, so here is my honest one. I think a lot of people simply like Coterie and are comfortable with it. It is the flashiest of the 4, it reads like what the army is supposed to be, and comfort is a real reason people pick things. 4 points of win rate is not enough to make someone relearn an army they enjoy. Hold that thought about Coterie, because the rest of this episode keeps coming back to it. Here is what I meant about the small range. Lord Exultant is in 92% of lists, and better than 2 of them on average. Tormentors, 92%. Infractors, 91.5%, better than 2 copies each. Defilers in 85%. Chaos Rhinos in 69%. Noise Marines in 67%. For a bit of perspective on that, the most taken model in the Dark Angels dossier we did this week was Azrael at 69%. And that felt high at the time. Here, 69% gets you 6th on the list. So when I talk about an Emperor's Children list from here on, I am talking about a fairly specific thing. 2 or 3 Lord Exultants leading Infractors, a couple of Defilers, Tormentors, and a Rhino to carry something. That is the army. The detachment you wrap around it is most of what varies. 2 rules run this army, and you need both to follow the rest. The first is Thrill Seekers, and it is on 18 of their 19 datasheets. It reads that the unit is eligible to shoot and declare a charge in a turn in which it advanced or fell back. So the whole book is built to move fast and still do everything. That is the army's identity in one line. The second only applies if you are playing Coterie, and it is called Pledges to the Dark Prince. At the start of each battle round, you declare a number to Slaanesh, and that number is how many enemy units you are going to destroy this round. Hit it, and you bank pact points, and the points stack up into re-rolling 1s to hit, then 1s to wound, then lethal hits and sustained hits on your melee, and eventually critical hits on 5s. Miss it, and you bank nothing, and your warlord takes D3 mortal wounds. It is cumulative, which is the part I would underline. The early kills buy you the tools that make the later kills easier. A slow first 2 rounds does not just cost you that round, it costs you the engine. Now the thing that made me want to cover them this week. On the 22nd of July, Coterie of the Conceited changed which Force Disposition it grants. It used to give you Purge the Foe. It now gives you Priority Assets. The detachment rules did not change. What changed is the deck of primary missions you play with. And those 2 decks want very different afternoons. The Purge the Foe missions pay you for killing. Destroyer's Wrath gives you 3 victory points for destroying 1 or more enemy units this turn, and another 4 for destroying more than your opponent did. Meat Grinder is the same 3, plus 5 for out-killing them. Priority Assets mostly pays you for doing jobs. Secure Asset wants a unit to secure the asset, and kills only pay 2, and only for units that started near central objective. Vital Link pays you for standing on the middle and for your operation markers, and has no kill trigger on it at all. Here's the bit that makes it awkward rather than just different. Those jobs are actions, and the core rules say a unit cannot start an action in a turn it advanced or fell back, and once it starts one, it cannot shoot and cannot charge, which is precisely the turn the Emperor's Children army rule exists to let them have. I want to be careful here. This is not a nerf, and it is not a broken detachment. Every army in the game wants to kill things, and Coterie still makes you better at killing things. The question is whether an army built to advance into your face wants to spend models standing still doing paperwork. The first weekend under it, Coterie went from 53.2 down to 48.5, and it is the only part of the faction that went down. Every other build put together came out at 53.9. That suggests something. It does not prove it, and the data slate moved points as well, and this is 13 lists, so keep an eye on it rather than banking it. The matchup board is where this army gets interesting. The good lanes. Chaos Space Marines at 61 over 82 games, Tyranids 56 over 134, Custodes 54 over 113, Tau 54 over 128. Space Marines, the biggest lane on the board at 176 games, is a fraction the right side of even. Now the bad end. Necrons, 45.3 over 148 games. Orcs, 44.7 over 123. Thousand Suns, 44.7 over 94. Imperial Knights, 46 over 87. Those are all decent sample sizes, so I am comfortable calling that a real pattern rather than a run of bad weekends. And I have a theory about what those 4 have in common, but I would rather show you than tell you, so let us go to the calc. This is Kirk Powell's Orc list. The round 3 opponent, Josiah Jackson, beat at Tacoma, and I am running Jackson's own units into it, 1 activation each. Infractors with a Lord Exultant attached into 10 Beast Snagaboys, 24 damage, and the entire squad comes off the table. 100% of the time. That unit is simply gone. Now the same unit, same turn, into a single kill rig. 15.5 damage, which is a lot of damage, and the chance the kill rig is actually destroyed is 25%. That is the whole thing, and it is why I wanted the calc here rather than a paragraph. Pledges to the Dark Prince does not count wounds, it counts units destroyed. 15 damage into a 10 model squad is a dead unit and a pledge met. 15 damage into 1 big tough model is a hurt model and a pledge missed, and D3 mortal wounds on your warlord. The Defiler is the one I want to spend a second on, because most people are buying it for the guns. Hades Battle Cannon, Las Cannon, Reaper Autocannon, and it has 9 ranged profiles against 3 melee ones. All of that shooting into 1 kill rig, sitting in cover the way a kill rig usually is, comes to 10 damage and a 7% chance to finish it. Out of cover, it is 20. Walk the same Defiler into melee, and it is 15 damage and 41%. So the half of the model people treat as a bonus is the half that actually closes the kill. The guns still hurt, and anyone who has taken a Hades cannon to the face on a knight knows they hurt. They just leave the thing standing, and standing does not pay the pledge. Now go back to that matchup board. Necrons, orcs with rigs in them, Thousand Suns, Imperial Knights. What those lists tend to share is fewer, tougher, multi-wound models. Against a horde, this army is a wood chipper. Against 6 big things, it can spend a whole game doing damage and never once finish a unit. First run, and I picked it because it is the army working exactly as designed. Josiah Jackson, 5-0, first place at the Tacoma Open Prep. Coterie of the Conceited, Purge the Foe, 27th of June, so almost a month before the change. 3 Lord Exultants leading Infractors, 2 Defilers, Tormentors, Noise Marines, a Demon Prince with wings, and a Rhino. 5 games, 5 wins, and look at the scores. 74, 83, 97, 91, 96. 2 of those rounds have the opponent's pick on record, so we know which primary mission the pairing produced. Round 2 against Death Guard was Destroyer's Wrath. Round 4 against Custodes was Meat Grinder. Read what those 2 pay. Destroyer's Wrath gives you 3 victory points at the end of your turn if 1 or more enemy units were destroyed, and 4 more if you destroyed more units than they did. Meat Grinder gives you the same 3 plus 5 for outkilling them. And the Detachment rule was paying them pact points for destroying a declared number of enemy units. So every single turn, the thing that scored their primary was the same thing that switched on their army. 1 decision, paid twice. That is a very comfortable game to play, and you can see it in scores in the 90s. The one I keep looking at is round 3 against Kirk Powell's Orcs, the list from our calc with the 3 kill rigs and 3 hunter rigs in it. 97-79. So this is beatable, clearly. I am not telling you the rigs are an auto loss. What I am saying is that the pledge gets harder against that shape of list, and the win rate across 123 Orc games backs that up, even though this particular game went fine. We did not watch any of these. What we have is the scoring and the lists. Second run is the other side of the line. Sam Dickinson, 4-1, 7th of 85 at the Battle of the East on the 25th of July. That is 3 days after the change, and it is the biggest event any Emperor's Children player attended that weekend. And the detachment is not Coterie. It is Carnival of Excess with Elegant Brutes, which grants Taken Hold. 93, 98, 90, 100, and then a 59. 4 wins by an average of 44 points and 1 loss. Start with what is unusual about this. Taken Hold across the entire edition has been picked by 3 Emperor's Children lists. 3 out of 201. It is the disposition this faction essentially never takes, and here is somebody taking it to a 100-player scale event and running 4th round scores of 100-25. Every round produced a Taken Hold mission. Battlefield dominance 3 times, which pays 2 points at the end of your turn for controlling more objectives than your opponent. Immovable Object in round 2, which pays 3 for holding a central objective. Inescapable Dominion in round 3, 4 for holding 3 or more. And none of those are actions. They are all just standing on things, which for an army that advances and charges is a very different ask from performing a sensor sweep, and a much more natural one. You can hold an objective with a unit that charged onto it. The round 5 loss is worth a look too, because it was a Taken Hold mirror against Blood Angels, and they lost it 59-85. Same mission, same job, and the other player did it better. Which is a useful reminder that the disposition is a lever and not a magic wand. I want to be honest about what this is. It is 1 player at 1 event, and Elegant Brutes has 5 lists in the whole edition. I am not telling you to go and buy Terminators. I am telling you that the one person who went furthest with this army after the change had walked away from the popular detachment entirely, and I think that is worth noticing. Third run. And this one is a rough watch. Jamie Denny, 0-5 at the Hobby Henchman July GT, same weekend as Dickinson. Coterie of the Conceited, and because it was after the 22nd, that means priority assets. 5 games, 5 losses. 29-100, 72-99, 65-92, 89-92, 33-100. Round 4 went down by 3, so it was not all one-sided, but look at the mission column, because that is why this run is in the episode. Vanguard Operation, Sabotage, Secure Asset, Secure asset. Every one of those 5 is an action mission. Vanguard operation pays 4 for a unit performing a Vanguard operation. Sabotage pays for each unit that committed sabotage. Secure asset pays 4 for a unit securing the asset. And the core rules say a unit cannot start an action in a turn it advanced or fell back, and once it starts one, it cannot shoot and it cannot charge that turn. So across 5 games, they were being asked every turn to take units out of the fight to score. On the one detachment in the book whose rule punishes you for not killing enough. Now, the caveats, and they matter, this is one player having a bad weekend, and everybody has had one. Their round 5 was against Orcs, which is their worst lane anyway. Their round 3 was a mirror against another Emperor's Children player, so somebody had to lose that. I am not putting this up as proof of anything. I am putting it up because it is the exact shape the rest of the episode would predict, and when the data and the story agree that neatly, you should be more suspicious rather than less. 13 Coterie lists have played under the new missions. 13. Ask me again in 3 weeks.
Quick word on where all this comes from.
Every number in this episode is pulled from tournament results through Wardrill, which is a free app for practicing your army. Data cards, dice maths, list checking, and the meta tools that produce these boards. It is on iOS and Android, and in a browser at wardrill.app. If you want the raw version of what you just watched, the faction pages have the same win rates and detachment splits updated every week, and you can paste your own list in and get it checked against the current rules. That is genuinely the whole pitch. Have a look if it sounds useful, and if it does not, no harm done. 3 things I will be keeping an eye on. First, Coterie under the new mission deck. 13 lists is nothing. If it is still under 50 in 3 weeks with 100 lists behind it, that is a real thing. If it bounces straight back, then last weekend was just a weekend. Second, Elegant Brutes. 5 lists have run it across the whole edition, and one of those just went 4-1 at a big event. That is a thread worth pulling, and I would not call it more than that. Third, whether anyone solves the big model problem. 25% to finish a kill rig with their best melee unit is the number underneath 4 of their worst matchups. Before the outro, thank you to the people funding this. You keep the lights on and the data flowing. So that is the Emperor's Children. 19 datasheets, 1 list, and a detachment that just had the ground moved under it. They were a very comfortable army a week ago, and they are an open question today, and I mean that in the interesting way. If you play them, I would genuinely like to hear how the new missions are going for you, because 13 lists is not enough, and you are the ones finding out. Test it on the table, trust your reps, and I will catch you at the next transmission. This is Sarv from Wardrill, signing out.